The story of BigScarr isn't your typical story of a rapper who grew up on the streets, committed several crimes, and had numerous run-ins with the law. It's the story of a 22-year-old man who used fame, jewelry, and drugs to mask the pain and depression he was battling. For BigScarr, he used the Xannies, perks, and lean to keep his demons away. Still, in his final 24 hours, the same drugs that had been his safe haven were eventually responsible for his death. But to understand why BigScarr was so depressed, it's important we go back to his roots on the streets of South Memphis. Streets of South Memphis. BigScarr was born on the 7th of April, 2000. Scarr grew up in the Magnolia neighborhood of Memphis, and he was born into a large family as he was one of 9 children. However, he wasn't raised by his mother or father, but instead by his grandmother. And for BigScarr, his granny was all he needed. He grew up as one of those people who had a unique and special connection with his grandparents. His grandma was the most important person in his life, and this never changed throughout his lifetime. And although BigScarr's hood was a place that was known for all sorts of crimes such as killings, robbing, drug dealing, and gang violence, his grandma found a way to shield him from all these. BigScarr's grandma was his guardian angel and anchor. But unfortunately, that all changed in 2013. His grandma passed away from lung cancer when he was 13, and this became the most impactful loss of his life.
If you could talk to God and he'd say, goddamn, you give me all these blessings back right here and I can change one thing, what would it be? Like, what you'd give all the back for?
My grandma.
Nah, for real.
Swear to God.
Oh, she's gone?
My grandma died when I was 13 from on stage for lung cancer.
BigScarr stated that when he was younger, he always prayed to God to let his grandma live till he was 21 or 22 years old so that he would be able to handle the law.
And like, I'm gonna tell y'all something crazy. When I was younger, my prayer to God always used to be, please don't let my grandma leave me until I'm like 21. Yeah. Nah, don't let her leave me until I'm like 21 or 22 so I'll be able to take it.
After BigScarr's grandma passed away, his life took a completely different direction. He moved in with his pops, and this was when he was introduced to the streets. Life with his father was different from what he experienced with his grandma. Scarr stated that he jumped off the porch 2 years after moving in with his father. This was when he joined his first gang, Grape Street Crips, at the age of 15.
I jumped out the porch at 15. I jumped out at age 15. I joined my first gang, Grape Street. I'm Grape Street Crip. I joined first gang at 15, jumped out the porch at 15.
Scarr's father was a street hustler, so this period exposed him to street life. And after some time, Scarr decided that he no longer wanted to go to school. BigScarr stated that he was the class clown while in school, and that there are days he would skip classes from the first period to the 7th period. He simply never took school seriously. Instead, BigScarr believed that all he needed to learn from school was how to read and how to count his money. And after learning these, he decided it was time to leave. Scarr dropped out of school when he was in 10th grade, and from here on, his only concern was the street business.
I dropped out of school 10th grade.
BigScarr, the gangster.
I did I don't think it ain't nothing I ain't did in the street. I done got everything I can get out of the street.
After dropping out of school, Scarr was now fully devoted to street life. He was following in his father's footsteps. BigScarr has always stated that his father is his best friend, and without him, he wouldn't be the man he is today. Although his father was always out hustling in the streets, he still took care of Scarr and his siblings, but it wasn't only his father that helped him be the man he became. Scarr stated that the street is also responsible for his personal development, and according to him, he did everything that was to be done on the streets of Memphis. During this period, becoming a rapper was something BigScarr never considered. BigScarr believes that the streets and his father helped him learn discipline, how to handle different situations, and what it takes to be a man. And after some time, BigScarr joined another gang called Trilla Mafia. Trilla Mafia is one of the deadliest gangs in Memphis. This gang is allegedly responsible for the death of young Dolph. And as a member of this gang, BigScarr was allegedly involved in a lot of shootings, robberies, and all sorts of crime. But Scarr surprised everyone when he decided to leave Trilla Mafia and start his own gang. BigScarr and his friends began a group called Rich and Ruthless, aka Double R. Some of the main members of Double R were CEO Jizzle, Baby K, and Drawfezzy. No one knows exactly why BigScarr left. Some reports speculate that he left because he didn't like the way the gang operated. But after BigScarr left Trilla Mafia, the men he once called his friends became his major op. No one knows exactly why Double R and Trilla Mafia began, but what we do know is that beef became deadly after Trilla Mafia allegedly killed Double R member BG. Before BG died, he and Trilla Mafia member C Mode were already aiming for each other. C Mode is perhaps the most notorious member of Trella Mafia. He was Double R's biggest op and was always looking to slide on his enemies. What makes C Mode's story even more fascinating is that during this period he was still a teenager. C Mode was only 19 years old, but he had already been involved in several shootings. He had a rap sheet that could rival some of the deadliest gangsters on the streets of Memphis. C Mode and BG exchanged words on Twitter, and they made several threats to each other. BG was waiting at a red light when 3 members of Trella Mafia shot him and the person in the passenger seat. Unfortunately, he died from his injuries while the other victim eventually survived. BG was allegedly killed by C Mode and 2 other members of Trella Mafia, Joe Crazy and Zay. A few months later, Go Crazy was arrested for BG's death, and he later pleaded guilty to premeditated murder. However, he refused to snitch on C Mode and Zay. For BigScarr, BG's death marked the loss of another person who meant a lot to him, and this made him even more depressed. But during this period, this depression was suppressed by a need to avenge BG's death, and Double R eventually got their pound of flesh. They allegedly killed Zay as retaliation for BG's death. But although the gangs were now even, the war didn't end here. C Mode was in juvenile detention for another offense when his homie was killed. He vowed to get back at Double R for the death of Zay. Trella Mafia is allegedly responsible for the death of 23. You see, 23 was a member of Double R, and he was the one in the passenger seat when BG was killed. Although he managed to survive when BG was killed, this time 23 was unlucky. 23 was at home with his father when members of Trella Mafia ambushed and killed him. But while Double R was losing members to the ops, for BigScarr, this period would mark the time that his life would change forever. BigScarr, the rapper. BigScarr is one of those artists who never had plans to become a rapper. Instead, he was comfortable with hustling in the streets. However, this changed when he was involved in an accident. Scar was 16 years old at this time, and during this period, carjacking was the favorite kind of hustle for him and his homies. BigScarr even stated that he and his friends were #1 for stealing cars.
I think we still #1 for stealing cars. I don't know why, it was just this trend. It was just a trend. We were going wild with stealing cars.
On the day of this accident, Scar left the block with his brother-in-law and one of his homies. Only one thing was on their mind. It was time to hit elite. They were on a mission seeking only trouble and anything they could steal along the way. Scar and his goons managed to steal a car, and from here on, he channeled his inner Dominic Toretto. BigScarr and his friends were driving at breakneck speed, and although they saw the traffic lights turn yellow, they still kept the pedal to the metal. However, they weren't the only ones trying to beat the lights. Another driver coming from the other end was trying to do the same thing, and as a result, this ended in a head-on collision at the intersection.
I don't think I remember it coming up through the light. You know, like how the light turned yellow, you try to go and beat it. The other car, the other light was doing the same exact thing I was doing, but it was turning like through the intersection. I'm coming through, and out there I remember them hitting and me looking sideways and seeing some 18-wheelers and shit.
According to Scar, he and his homies were hit by an 18-wheeler truck. Scar was thrown through the windshield of the stolen car and landed face first on the hood of another car.
You went through the windshield?
I flew through the windshield. See, after a while I woke up, I thought about it. I remember somebody holding me down on the hood of the car. My face was burning. That's how I got these marks on my face. My face was burning real bad on the hood of the car.
Scar was in the hospital for a while after this accident. However, this tragic incident will become the propeller that changes Scar's life forever. The burns left several scars on his face, and for a while, his homies nicknamed him Scarface. It was also around this period that BigScarr's friend Baby K convinced him to become a rapper. Scar never considered becoming an MC, but he was told by Baby K and some other friends that he was already living the life that rappers talked about in their songs. Scar took inspiration from the nickname that his homies gave him and made it his stage name. This was the moment Scarface became BigScarr. BigScarr spent $20 to record his first song titled Make a Play. This was his very first song, but no one would have expected that this would also become BigScarr's breakout song. He spent another $200 to shoot the music video, and it got around 50,000 views on YouTube. The song became bigger when Tommy Craze reacted to it on his channel. Make a Play had become the talk of the moment. Unlike most rappers, Scar's first song wasn't just a hit, it's also the song that would get him signed. Scar's cousin Pooh Shiesty also shared the track with Gucci Mane. Gucci was hooked after hearing Make a Play, and he decided to sign Scar straight away. BigScarr signed for Gucci's 1017 label in 2020, and he was now playing in the big league. Scar stated that his music was inspired by the likes of Boozy Badass and Kodak Black, and when talking about his creative process, BigScarr stated that he doesn't write down his lyrics. Instead, his bars are created spontaneously. However, whilst BigScarr's career was undeniably on the right track, he just couldn't leave the streets behind, because you can take the boy out of the hood, you can't take the hood out of the homie. Hood politics. Although BigScarr was now a rap star, he was still a member of Double R. So whilst he was performing at shows in Atlanta and LA, he still had business to deal with in the hood. Scarr and Trilla Mafia member D Money had a back and forth on social media, and they continually exchanged words. And shortly after this, D Money was killed in a late night shooting while passing through Trigg Street in South Memphis. Various reports state that BigScarr and Double R are responsible for the death of D Money, and this was confirmed by Double R member CEO Jizzle on his song Rich and Ruthless. On the song, Jizzle rapped, "If he diss on 23, swear to God, it gon' be rep. You ain't heard what happened to the last dude, got left on Trigg Street." D Money dissed 23 after he died, and he was the man that was killed on Trigg Street. During this period, BigScarr knew that Memphis wasn't a safe place for him to be because the ops were seeking revenge and gunning for his life. And it didn't take too long before Trilla Mafia almost got their revenge. BigScarr returned to his hood to hang out with his homies. He knew that coming to South Memphis was dangerous, but as I said, you can't take the hood out of the homie.
What would you say has been one of the biggest obstacles you had to overcome to make it out of Memphis?
Leave. Hard to leave that shit. Love it to death, but it's just something I hate. But it's like I always go back. I be telling the fool now, I ain't going back to Memphis. Then week I'm back.
While in Memphis, BigScarr was shot in his hip, and while trying to escape the shooters, the bullet traveled from his hip to his lungs. This made his injuries even more serious.
I got shot in the hip, but by me moving, it made the bullet travel and go up into my lung. The bullet still in my lung. When I'm good, I went in the hospital. A week.
BigScarr had to undergo surgery to ensure he survived these injuries. He stated that the bullets had traveled so deep that the doctors not only had to remove his appendix, but also realign his leg. Fortunately, BigScarr survived the shooting and eventually recovered from his injuries. He got back in the booth, and in 2021, he released the track So Icy Boys featuring Pooh Shiesty and Fujiano. Then he released So Icy Boys 2, and on So Icy Boys 3, he featured Gucci Mane. And in the same year, BigScarr eventually released his debut mixtape Big Grim Reaper in April 2021. Mixtape peaked at number 25 on the Billboard 200, selling 22,000 copies in the first week. BigScarr was one of the hottest new talents from Memphis, and in 2022, he became even bigger. Scarr was part of the 2022 XXL freshman class. He freestyled on a cypher alongside the likes of Nardo Wick, Big 30, and Kenthi Man. However, behind all the glam, fame, and success he had now achieved, BigScarr was still battling a serious case of depression. BigScarr never recovered from the death of his grandma. Also, even though he was just 22 years old, Scarr had lost several friends, and their deaths had a major impact on him as well. Instead, he used drugs, pills, and alcohol as an escape or tool to mask his pains and problems. By the end of 2022, BigScarr's addiction had become a problem he could no longer handle himself, and now his videos from this period could now be seen as a cry for help.
Where you going, cuz? Where you going, cuz? Cuz, where you going, cuz?
That video would be the last clip that BigScarr ever appeared in. BigScarr was with his girlfriend when this video was taken, and less than an hour after this, BigScarr passed away at his girlfriend's house. According to his uncle, Scarr died as a result of a prescription pill overdose. He would forever be remembered as one of the best young talents to come from Memphis in recent years. Fortunately, he got to spend his last 24 hours around those who love him, and may his soul rest in peace.